Welcome to Turkish series stars, where we go behind the polished photos and see the heartbeat of the story. Before we begin this intimate reflection, tap like, hit subscribe, and consider joining as a member to keep this space alive. Your support makes it possible for us to bring you moments that matter, week after week. Now, let's step into something gentle, true, and quietly powerful. What does it mean when someone becomes your everything? It's a phrase that gets tossed around easily, yet when it lands with sincerity, it carries the weight of a promise. To say someone is your everything isn't a dramatic flourish. It's an acknowledgement of how your life rearranges itself around a presence that steadies you. It's the difference between noise and melody, between confusion and a new kind of clarity. When one person's faith in you starts making the impossible feel not only possible but within reach, that's when the words stop sounding like poetry and begin feeling like a blueprint. When Yağmur looks at Barış and, either in a whisper after the cameras are gone or with a boldness that doesn't care who's watching, tells him, "You are my everything," she isn't surrendering herself or claiming him as a possession. She is recognizing the place he occupies in her world. Life without him would still hold purpose, but life with him sharpens the picture. The colors seem richer. The air is a little lighter. The map of tomorrow looks less like a blank page and more like a path they can walk together. That sentence, small as it seems, is not born in a rush. It's something that arrives after nights of listening, mornings of patience, and countless moments where care proves itself in quiet ways. Real love doesn't step onto the stage fully formed. It learns its lines as it goes. It's not an endless surge or a spark that never fades, it's a craft, shaped day by day. It shows up in roasted vegetables made just the way he likes them, in late-night tea brewed to calm her racing thoughts, in a car ride where silence says more than words ever could. It lives in jokes that only they understand, the ones you can catch in the corners of their smiles. It's in the way they instinctively reach for each other's hands when the room feels too loud. If you've been paying attention to Barış and Yağmur, you can see it, love tucked in the in-betweens, in the glances exchanged when the world isn't looking, in the little rituals that don't make headlines but build a home. Nothing about their connection arrived in a single lightning strike. It wasn't born from one viral moment or an explosion of attention. It grew as most real things do, but quietly, steadfastly, honestly. They learned to choose kindness over pride. They practiced the courage of saying "I'm sorry" without expecting applause. They learned that telling the truth is an act of love even when it's uncomfortable. They practiced protecting each other's hearts when pressure came from outside, and sometimes when it came from within. Each time they stood together, they reinforced a promise that didn't need to be shouted to be real. When Yağmur says to Barış that he is her everything, it doesn't trap them, it frees them. Success stops being a solo victory lap. Wins belong to both, carried like a shared flag. His breakthroughs feel like hers, and her achievements become the horizon he's running toward too. The dreams they once imagined alone take on structure and timelines. They begin to move like a pair, each stride different, but in rhythm. Their struggles, too, don't feel like punishments to endure in isolation. They become bridges. One holds steady while the other crosses, then switch without keeping score. For them, it has meant figuring out when to speak and when to simply be. It has meant choosing sacrifice without keeping tallies, forgiving without performing forgiveness, and protecting their individuality while still defending their togetherness. They let the outside world talk, but they don't let it decide. The boundaries they draw make space for tenderness rather than taking it away. Their love isn't fragile, it's firm and flexible at once, like a tree that bends with the wind and keeps rooting deeper. Being someone's everything does not erase who you are. That's a line they never cross. For Barış, staying grounded is not an act, it's who he is. He holds his calm like a lighthouse, not to dim the sea but to guide ships through it. For Yağmur, her discipline doesn't feel cold, it's the warmth of a clear morning. Her poise isn't a mask, it's her natural cadence. Together, they do not echo each other. They reveal each other, the way a mirror can tell you the truth without stealing your light. What they share isn't about symmetry. It's about complement, balance, and a kind of synchronicity they earned. Their partnership turns ambition into collaboration and individuality into energy. Where some relationships get tangled in competition, theirs finds momentum in admiration. Watch them and you'll sense it, the way she respects his quiet stamina, how his presence steadies the temperature of the room. In his gaze you can read how deeply he honors her courage, how she knows when to soften and when to stand firm, how she can be both shelter and spark. That mutual admiration is the motor that keeps their story moving forward, keeping curiosity alive and complacency out of the room. Love doesn't just survive there. It's tended to, watered, pruned, and allowed to bloom again and again in ways that feel new. Just as important is what their love is not. It is not dependence. It is not surveillance masked as care. It is not a constant negotiation for control. When she says you are my everything, she doesn't disappear into him. He doesn't swallow her light. They stand on their own 2 feet, by choice, while still choosing to remain side by side. Trust exists without the need to peek over shoulders. Respect allows room for difference, for separate interests, for the kind of distance that keeps longing alive and conversation fresh. Staying together is never an obligation, it's a decision renewed with intention. Think about their disagreements, the ones you never see and the ones you do. Not every storm announces itself. Sometimes it's a cloudy afternoon that lingers. But after the weather passes, they return to a familiar place, courtesy. They make room for each other to say what needs saying. They listen even when it stings. They do not treat compromise as defeat. They treat it as a bridge they build together, plank by plank, until they meet in the middle. They don't debate to win. They talk to protect what they've built. Life interrupts. Schedules collide. The outside world presses in. On those days, the story of their bond is easiest to read. Look closely and you'll see it. He becomes the ground beneath her when things tremble. She becomes the light that finds the key when the room goes dark. They don't wear resilience like a costume. They practice it so often that it looks effortless. There is a quiet confidence they carry because they've walked through hard things without letting go of each other's hands. Real love, the kind Barış and Yağmur practice, isn't scared of storms because it remembers what it has already survived. It whispers, "We have done this before. We will do it again." When you catch Barış looking at her, you notice the calm certainty in his eyes, a promise that doesn't need to be spoken. When she looks back, there's a vow without theatrics. I see you, every shade of you. I'm here for all of it. Strength and tenderness. Triumph and doubt. The glitter and the grit. This isn't the kind of romance built on fireworks and elaborate displays for the feed. It isn't loud. It doesn't need to be. It's stitched into the daily, the ordinary, the moments that don't trend. It's the way he gives her room to breathe when the day is heavy. It's the way she notices the detail he's hiding behind a smile and asks the question that matters. It's the way they show up when there's nothing glamorous to capture. And that's the secret, love that lasts isn't a spectacle. It is consistency, presence, and patience that never gets bored of showing up. So before we close, sit with this: who holds the most space in your life? Who steadies your steps and makes the world clearer without asking you to shrink? How do you show them they matter? Not with a performance, but with the small, human acts that say I choose you, again. If you believe in the kind of love we've seen glimmer between Barış and Yağmur, carry that belief into your own home. Be honest. Be open. Be grateful in the little moments nobody else sees. If this conversation touched you, press like, subscribe to keep walking with us, and consider joining to support what we create together. We'll keep telling the stories that remind you to look for the quiet brilliance in your own life. Until next time, stay present, stay kind, stay loving, and remember, Turkish series Stars is here for you.